This week on Fantasy Fugitives, the Savants look back at the opening week of the season and react to the action, give their Week 2 predictions, and sprinkle a couple of croutons on your shit segment of the week salad. Fantasy Fugitives is brought to you this week by the heroes at Cook County Hospital. A leader in prosthetics research, Cook County Hospital works to ensure that all former police officers turned private hitmen have access to quality prosthetics.
Welcome everyone to week 2 here of the Fantasy Fugitives. I am Wade Holmes, joined here by
Scott Franz.
And we are very excited to bring you a new episode. So Scott, why don't you lead us into our first...
Hold on. Do we have our hot take shots ready?
Yes, we have a new sponsor for our hot take shot. So do you want to say who our sponsor is?
No.
Okay, excellent.
Asking a question about a hot take shot, clearly a hot take.
Hot take is smooth.
Shall we get started with the segments?
Let's do it.
All right, so we're gonna get a little freaky with our segments. The segment Carousel, as we've been known to call it, is brought to you by the Cleveland I Don't Believe in Quarterback Carousel. So we're gonna throw at you a couple of different segments that we think would just be funny to do. The first one being the Sports Tautology of the Week. Wade, you had I had the pleasure of listening to the Pardon My Take podcast with you earlier today,
yes,
in which we listened to an interview from Jim Harbaugh, and he said something particularly interesting that I thought, a little nugget of wisdom that everyone could share. He said, you need a field goal kicker who can kick field goals when talking about, keys to victory in college football, and I imagine that may or may not be the case for the NFL as well.
Sure.
I'm glad to know now before it's too late, because I drafted Dustin Hopkins for mainly his housekeeping and playground sports prowess, and I imagine with a name like his, he must have excelled at tetherball, foursquare, and of course hopscotch.
Right, absolutely.
So, and honestly, I don't think this segment is really savage enough, so I think we need to throw it through another power punch segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll bring us to our second curveball crouton of the week here. We're going to go to useless fact of maybe about the NFL. So
I guess kind of about the NFL.
We're still workshopping the name.
So neither of us know what each other's facts are going
Right.
into this. So Wade, why don't you take yours first?
Okay, absolutely. So my fact for week 2 is that in a 1998 Sports Illustrated I'm going to start laughing through this one. Sports Illustrated profile on Ed McCaffrey, his wife Lisa said they got to get together to breed fast white guys. And of course their son is Christian McCaffrey, who ran the 40 and 448 this year at the Combine. So
444 fours, and there's a lot of fours there.
yeah, 40 and 4.48. So I think that, congratulations breeders, you did it.
Yeah, I would say they successfully breeded a very, very fast white man.
Yes.
So my useless stat comes, I think, a little more off kilter, but much to the chagrin, I think, of the Raider Nation out there.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that.
Did you know that the Oakland Raiders currently have the most expensive beer in football?
Oh.
At $10.75, they have a higher beer price than any other professional sports team, at least within their stadium.
Yeah, but you're really paying for that piss water, but that's like the special brand.
So you pay for the piss water so that you can go to the shitty piss trough
That's
and
right.
immediately pee it all out?
Yeah,
It blew my mind that you could I guess really Raider Nation they're bringing their own alcohol, really.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're going into the stadium to buy it.
Well,
but even then, you're still screwing them over.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was in the black hole was the time Jamal Charles scored 4 touchdowns overall on us, and I bought a lot of those shitty, overpriced beers, and they helped me. So how much do you pay for a therapist? Because those beers can really help when you're not doing so well.
Yeah, and especially when, as Anthony will point out time and time again, you got to watch out for the screen. And what did they not do on the first play of the game?
Watch out for that screen.
Watch out for that screen. Okay, so enough of the silly stuff. Let's look at the tape, and let's go over what happened in week 1 in the league this
Yeah, let's whip out the recap. So let's whip it out for week 1. Scott, what game do you want to go over first?
I mean, I would say go over my own because, egotism reigns.
Let's do it.
Okay, so really all I saw in that game is I saw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar dropping 42, 25, and 10 on me, basically, with a wicked skyhook. And there was no defense that I could play against the guy who's just going to score 42 points before technically the week had even started.
Yeah. You know, though, Scott, I do want to say one thing that's a compliment to your team. Ty Montgomery does look like the truth, though, on the field. And I don't know if you know this, but I looked it up, and he was actually on the field for 90% of all offensive snaps. So that's a lot.
It's opportunity is what that is.
Yes, but unfortunately, the Redskins killed Scott just like Custer, and Scott fell to me 88 to 137.5.
Yeah, no amount of the Jacksonville Jaguars defense putting on a sack of potatoes clinic on the Texans. I'd have needed to sell my soul to be able to beat you this week without Mike Evans and OBJ. Yeah. So thanks, Hurricane McDavid.
David Johnson, heal fast.
All right, so next one of the week. How about Dalvin and the Chipmunks versus the Raiders gave me crabs. Laura, look, I hope the treatment is going well for the crabs, as well as just the treatment for the shame of having Mr. Dalvin and his Chipmunks stealing your acorns the night before the first snow of winter and leaving you wondering what could have been with that 30-some-odd run at the end of the game in garbage time to basically take you out of contention and hand you the loss this week.
Yeah, I think Laura got caught looking Dak, and she was turned into salt. So, Dak sitting on her bench, rough move. That would have been all the points she needed to win.
For anyone who obviously can't see me, I'm looking at Wade with a little bit of disdain for that Dak joke there.
Hey, I was a Catholic Studies minor. I gotta get it in somewhere.
Do you though? Okay. So what next?
Let's go over to Sam and Bella's game.
That was one of the things you were talking about with that Pardon My Take podcast.
Yes.
Is
for anyone that doesn't know, we take a lot of inspiration from Pardon My Take, and if you haven't checked them out, definitely give their podcast a listen to. They're incredibly funny.
There are comedic spiritual animals, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
So in the same vein of them talking about the shit the bed guy, I think in our league, Bella is our constantly fretting about their match, even though it's well in hand guy.
Yes. Oh my God! Yesterday she was terrible.
It was just relentless angst and worry when it was pretty clear that you didn't have much to worry about. She was up by 15 by the end of that game.
No,
at least with the Monday night slate there. So I was really surprised that she just once again decided to feel stress where there was no need to.
It was bizarre because the game script last night went against both players that she was worried about. She was really worried that the Chargers were going to run the ball when they were down 14 and that the Broncos were going to throw the ball when they were up 14. I was like, no, you're going to be fine. And was she fine?
Yep.
Yeah, so there you go.
And, I think Matt Stafford is once again showing our league why we really need to start drafting him earlier this year. Because, you've drafted him as Mr. Irrelevant, and him
first year.
And he was the number one fantasy quarterback that year, if I recall. Yeah. And he dropped 28 this week. So that's just. And then on the other side of the coin, Sam looks like he's gonna go about as far as Russell Wilson can run before his opposing defensive line kills him, because the Seattle offensive line might as well be the tater tot that Sam has on his picture for his team.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say that both Sam and Bella had very solid performances this week.
Nothing to be ashamed of. They put up some solid points.
Yeah, and it's weird. I wrote about Stafford as well, and I just said that clearly he was worth that contract that they paid him. So
he's not the kind of guy who's going to sign the contract and then sit on his laurels.
No. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Your call.
Let's go Ed and Justin on that one.
Holy smokes!
Is there much to be said about Ed's team at this point?
I still think that
other than Le'Veon Bell, he went about as far as I expected his team to go. I didn't expect Le'Veon to do as poorly as he did. But
no, I'm predicting that Ed has a good year this year, but I think that there was some week one jitters. I think that when he got into the locker room and he tried to give the speech, maybe he slipped on a banana peel. And then the speech just came out all wrong. You never know with these things.
Yeah, and you know what happens when you slip on the banana peel? You lose coins. Yeah. You can't get back to top speed, and you end up getting back.
Place?
You get back into the pack, and then you got red shells hitting you all over the place. It's just miserable. As for Justin, though, I mean, look, the smirk on that GIF is just creepy.
Well, especially because he's looking.
I mean, his team did all right, I guess, but Baelish did nothing wrong, look at that gif and tell me he didn't do anything wrong.
Well, and he's also smiling at like a 12-year-old girl.
Really creepy.
It's weird.
Yeah, there's some very rapey vibes that he gives for basically his whole existence.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on.
Yeah, on to Dominant. Dom, what is there? You made history in the worst of ways, even with half PPR being added. For those of you who don't know, Dom managed to break the record for lowest point total in a single week.
Yeah.
With, what did he end up scoring? 40?
He ended at 48.5.
48.5. The previous record was 51, if I recall, for lowest.
Yeah.
And that had been hit multiple times by Steven and I think Laura in her inaugural year with us.
LaShawn McCoy did look good, Dom.
Leonard Fournette looked all right,
Yeah.
but you got -7 between your defense and Andy Dalton.
Listen, when I said, what are you doing with Andy Dalton? That's your only quarterback on your roster. I wasn't kidding around, and now I feel a little bit like Nostradamus, so thank you, Dom.
That's all I have written here. And I think that's all that needs to be said about that matchup.
All right.
Well, that wraps up the week 1 in review.
Yep.
On to week 2. All right, so here's how the week 2 predictions are going to work.
Yep.
Typically over the season, Wade and I are going to be trying to compete to see who can pick the best over the course of the season, much like your average Monday Night Football crowd, trying to pick those games. Though obviously we're probably going to have a far closer match because we're obviously going to be very good at this.
Sure.
So,
I just had an idea that I didn't run by you, but I know Anthony makes his picks before the games too. So, I mean, I think we're better than Anthony at this, so we should include him, but sort of as.
We'll include the commission's picks. Yeah, I see what you're going. Yeah.
I also just want to say, shout out to Anthony, who does an incredible job. But does he have too much power? Should we start booing him whenever we see him?
Do we need a Supreme Court to check his power?
Total restraint.
I think we have 2 experts here that are clearly both unbiased and extremely qualified to make those kinds of legal judgments. So,
Judge Bilbo.
I will happily and humbly take on the honor of legal arbiter in that case.
Excellent.
All right. So when we do our predictions, you're gonna give scores.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and guess closest to the score,
and I'm gonna give who I think is going to be the MVP. That is, for whichever team this player is on, they're going to be the top scorer for that team.
Yes.
And who's the least valuable player, the LVP.
Absolutely.
And for obvious reasons, they will be the lowest scoring player.
Okay.
And I'll even keep track and see how often I can actually hit that on the head.
Sure.
All right. First matchup, Justin versus me.
Yes. So I have, this is what I'm thinking here. I think that I have some questions, and I'll say my numbers. Mike Evans returns. How will he play? Will Odell Beckham Jr. play this week? Will Gillisley see more than 10 targets? And will Kirk Cousin make a valiant return? With all those questions.
Yes, no, yes.
Okay. All excellent answers. So I put this at going in Scott's favor, 115 to 103. I think it's going to be a high-scoring match, and I do give it to Scott.
All right, I also have me because, my MVP, Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans goes off this week because he's a little mad that he didn't get to play week 1 in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Plus, they get you get an extra week of training camp basically. So I think Mike Evans goes off. Least valuable player, Delaney Walker. Tight end in that situation. Here's why. Tennessee is going to have to be dealing with what is clearly a potent Jacksonville Jaguars pass rush.
Sure.
And it feels really weird to say that sentence out loud. But that being said, you can't ignore the fact that they put up 10 sacks.
Right.
I think they're going to need Delaney Walker to be in on pass and run blocking more often than you might have expected, and so he doesn't get nearly as much action in the passing game, so he puts up a dud this week.
Okay. Yeah, solid calls.
All right. Second matchup, Sam and Ed. Who you got?
Okay, so here's what I've got. My quick reaction. I think Drew Brees will stay hot. I think New England was just exploited by Alex Smith. Real hot take there, but I think Drew Brees is better than Alex Smith.
You know what that means.
Ooh, yeah, our mystery.
The mystery of
Hot
whether or not Alex Smith can continue to put up 380-yard performances for the rest of the season. Is he the gunslinger that we always thought that he probably wasn't going to ever be?
Ooh, hey, I'll put one out there right now. I bet Drew Brees scores more points than Alex Smith this week.
That's probably,
Yeah. Okay,
that's
so
pretty safe bet.
will Drew Brees stay hot? Yes. I think Le'Veon Bell will also be better. And all I can say is that I feel really bad for Russell Wilson. So echoing what Scott said earlier, Sam, I don't know if you know this, but every time you start Russell Wilson, it's closer to him dying. So maybe think about a man's life. And maybe no David Johnson.
A man must die.
That's true. Eventually you do have to die.
Yeah.
But what do we say to death?
Not today.
And what do we say to our O-line?
Please, God, block.
Yeah, exactly. So without David Johnson, maybe Fitzgerald sees a few more targets and Carson's going to be throwing because how do they respect the run? So I give this one to Ed.
Interesting. Okay.
And I call it 92-87 in Ed's favor. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring, but I think Ed gets off the schneid there.
All right, so this is going to be one where we're going to separate. I got Sam in this one.
Okay.
My MVP, beast mode. I think Marshawn Lynch, look, like Pardon My Take said when we were listening to them earlier today,
Yes.
he runs violently even when there's no one in front of him.
Yes.
He is stomping the ground and trying to attack the air. And I think he continues to do that to a monster week this week.
All right.
Least valuable player, Alshon Jeffrey. I think Kansas City proved last week that they are more than capable of isolating number one targets for offenses in the passing game,
Right.
and I think Alshon Jeffrey gets shut down.
Okay, interesting. All right, we're going to move on now to Laura versus Anthony. Okay, I really only have 1 point here, and that is revenge game for Brady and the Patriots. I mean, last season was the revenge season, and we all saw how that went. So I honestly give this one to Laura. I think it goes 101-90 in Laura's favor. I think that Anthony will struggle, especially with T.Y. Hilton not having Andrew Luck throwing him the ball. Scott Tolzien is not a serviceable quarterback in this league.
And is Tolzien playing week 2?
Yes.
Yeah. Real mismanagement, Andrew Luck on behalf of the Colts there.
Yeah.
Well, in that matchup, we're also in agreement. I got Laura in that one.
Sorry, Commish.
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner. I think you're going down this week. Most valuable player, Julio Jones. Atlanta is not Seattle when they're playing Green Bay this week. So Green Bay had a great defensive performance, and I think they deserve all the credit in the world for sending Russell Wilson screaming for his mother.
Sure.
But
especially on all those rushes where they sent 3 guys and all 3 got beyond the O-line.
There's 5 offensive linemen, there's 3 rushers, and none of them got blocked. It just blows my mind. Really in mid-season form, though, for the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. But anyways, the Falcons, despite the fact that they, I think, had some jitters or at least some just miscommunications and altogether lack of chemistry without Kyle Shanahan there, I think they're a little more close to the well-oiled machine we saw them last year offensively. Yeah. So I think Julio Jones is a big game. Okay. My least valuable player, you touched on it, T.Y. Hilton. Yeah. Until he gets a serviceable quarterback there, he will not be catching a lot of balls. And his main reason for being a good fantasy receiver is targets and catches, because he doesn't get a lot of red zone targets, and his yards per catch is, I think, close to either league average or below.
Right.
So, yeah, that's my take on that one. All right. Your matchup.
Yes. So in this one, I think that Cam needs to bounce back. Sure, Carolina looked really strong, but they sort of died off in the second half, and I didn't think Cam looked that good. So I think for Kate to come out strong in week 2, Cam's going to have to play well. Dalvin's going to need to keep cooking, and I will need to find a new David Johnson. So I think a lot of ways...
I think you're going to have trouble on that last one.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think for me, if Tyler Eifert can step up and if Kareem Hunt can do half of what he did last week, that would be pretty amazing. So I'm going to take a bold stance here and pick myself. I have it going 103.5 to 91. So 103.5 to 91 in favor of me. Kate, I think you've got a good chance at upsetting me, but I don't call it.
All right, I also have you winning by the skin of your teeth.
I'll take it.
And here, so this is gonna be a little weird.
Okay.
Normally my MVPs and LVPs have been on the respective teams that I think will win or lose.
Yes.
You have both the MVP and LVP this week for me. I think Michael Thomas is gonna go off this week.
All right.
I think New England couldn't stop Kansas City in terms of the passing game, and nothing against Alex Smith, but he's not Drew Brees.
Sure.
So. I think Michael Thomas goes off against that secondary, but I think your least valuable player this week is going to be Eifert. I don't trust the Cincinnati Bengals offense as far as I could throw the entire collective unit of them. So I'm going to say Eifert also.
Rebuttal point?
No.
All right, well,
Nope.
that's fair.
Nope.
That's fair. Yeah. All right, moving right along.
Domandella.
Okay, so I wrote a lot of capital letters here. So I have don't start Dalton in all caps. I have pick up another quarterback not named Andy Dalton in all caps. I have don't start Hunter Henry. He's not the tight end 1. But if you do want to start a tight end 2, Dom, I actually have a guy that you might want to pick up. So you should try and pick up, let me make sure I pronounce his name correctly. You should pick up Demetrius Harris. He's the tight end 2 behind Travis Kelce, and he actually put up 8 points last week. So I don't know if you've got some sabermetrics going on where you think that tight end 2 is the way to go, but if you do, Demetrius Harris might be your guy. The only other thing that I want to say is that let's see if Ajayi can run against LA. And
My bet is no.
I have this one going 108-80 in Bella's favor.
All right, so I also have Bella winning, so I guess that makes it to where we only have the Sam and Ed matchup as the differentiator.
Ed.
Either way, I think Bella wins. I didn't really even need to look at this just based off of Dom's performance last week, to be perfectly honest. Record-breaking performance in the worst of ways. So the MVP this week for that matchup is going to be Jordy Nelson. Okay. I think Jordy Nelson goes off because I think the Green Bay Packers go off. Yep. The least valuable player, though, Davante Adams.
Okay.
Because here's
not
what happens.
Hunter Henry.
No. I thought about putting Hunter Henry, but that would have been a hot take.
That would have been a very hot take.
So I say Davante Adams is the LVP this week because I think the shootout happens between Green Bay and they're playing Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Green Bay and Atlanta, I think, turns into a shootout. But I think Davante Adams gets some serious FOMO going on because I think the cool kids, that being Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Ty Montgomery, they all get together for a really cool sleepover, and they invite the new kid on the block, Martellus Bennett, over for maybe a few catches, maybe a red zone TD or something like that, maybe 7 catches, that sort of thing. Yeah. Meanwhile, Davante Adams gets left alone and has to play. And you know what? Actually, he could go play with Hunter Henry.
He could,
because he's going to be just as isolated and weird looking as he is.
Well, I was going to say, you know who's bringing the hot pockets to that Green Bay party?
Who's that?
Randall Cobb, because he's like a dad, and he just shows up and he's like, "Hey, kids want some hot pockets?"
Well, okay, so that's it for the Week 2 matchups and the Week 2 predictions.
Yeah. So why don't we switch to some musical stylings here, and then we'll be right back.
I'll be right back. And we're back. All right, so we're going to do something that I'm really excited about, which is Wade and I have come up with another little friendly competition where we are going to try to put together the best possible waiver wire teams each week and compete to see who can come up with the most points week to week. All right, so let's just get right down to it because the waiver wire is a very scary place, and we need to just dive into the deep end head first. So we'll start with team names. I think that's obviously the most important part of any fantasy football team.
Yes, absolutely.
Wade, what have you got?
In honor of nothing in particular, my team is called the Replicants.
I have. That's a completely original one that I would have no idea what that would reference to.
I just came up with it like 7 seconds ago.
Wow, that's lovely. Yeah. I am the Kona Brewing Big Waves Golden Aching for a Starting Job team.
That's beautiful.
So we're going to do traditional snake draft. Yep. So we'll have a first pick, then 2 in a row, 2 in a row, 2 in a row, 2 in a row, until we fill out a quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, tight end, flex, defense, and kicker team. Using only the waiver wire at our disposal. And we cannot pick the same players.
So next week we're going to see who won our matchup, but also if we beat any team in the league.
Because then that will just be for shame. Yeah. We will have the Shane Bell from GOT ready to go.
Yeah, you can cut your hair off if you want.
Well, you're not going to get raped by the mountain. We promise that.
All right, so
who's gonna get first pick? We're doing 15-second timer on all the picks. This is going to be rapid fire.
I'm going to elect and give it to you, Scott.
Yeah, I appreciate that, given that you got the first pick in this year's draft again. Yeah. Okay.
So, starting the timer now.
Okay, first pick, Sam Bradford.
Second pick, Carson Palmer.
Let's see, third and fourth picks. Let's go.
Oh, I have one more.
Right, sorry, yeah, you got 2.
So, my second pick is going to be Tariq Cohen.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm going to go Kerwin Williams and Andre Ellington.
Darren Sproles and Cooper Cup.
Kobe Fleener and Travis Benjamin.
Okay. I will go Marquise Lee and Kendall Wright.
I'm gonna go Sterling Shepard.
Okay. 5 seconds.
About Charles Clay.
Okay. I'm going to take my boy Jared Cook. And I'm going to take Kenny Galladay.
I'm gonna take the Lions D, and I mean, with a story like his, how can you not go with Giorgio Tavecchio, whatever the hell his name is, at kicker?
Stole my guy, my first steal of the draft. All right,
the first of many drafts.
Yeah, right. I'll take the Oakland Raiders defense and Blair Walsh. So we're gonna read our teams now, and
hey, you know what I actually just noticed? Even in a draft as simple as that, neither of us took a defense or a kicker until the last 2 rounds.
Oh, that's so weird. Maybe
it's really, really interesting. Anyways, all right. So on the Kona Brewing Big Waivers Golden Aching for a Starting Job team goes as follows: Sam Bradford, Kerwin Williams, Andre Ellington, Travis Benjamin, Sterling Shepard, Kobe Fleener, Charles Clay, the Lions defense, and Giorgio Tavecchio.
Very nice. Okay, and I have Carson Palmer, Tariq Cohen, Darren Sproles, Cooper Kupp, Marquise Lee, Jared Cook, Kenny Galladay, the Oakland Raiders defense, and Blair Walsh.
Okay, and stay tuned for next week's episode where we figure out not only who is the superior waiver wire savant,
yes,
but also we'll recap the Week 2 games. We'll have another segment carousel for you,
sure.
Maybe even a few other little tricks up our sleeves.
Yeah. So from both of us here, we want to say have a great week.
Well, except for who are each of us playing? So obviously Justin and Kate. Yeah. Hope you both lose.
Yeah.